Hello creators, thank you for joining me, and welcome to the art part with Miss Colleen. Today we're going to be exploring a little bit more the art element known as texture. In the past we've practiced creating actual texture, which is when we use our materials to change the physical feel of our artwork that we're working on, and we've practiced a little bit of visual and implied texture, which is where we use our materials to create the illusion of what an object might feel like if we could touch it. We're going to be practicing that a little bit more today. The materials that we will need will be a piece of paper, a pencil, and you can use your crayons if you'd like. I'm going to have mine nearby, but probably mostly I will be using my pencil to create visual and implied texture. What we're going to do today is we're going to create a piece of artwork with visual texture, and we're going to draw a picture of anything that you would like to draw a picture of today. It could be anything, as long as you include a variety of different textures. So you can start to get an idea of some different kinds of textures you can include in your artwork. In the last video, we created some objects that we practiced visual texture on. I did a chair, did a portrait of my dog, and a glass of water. So those are just a few different examples of things that you might include in your picture. You can include textures that you've practiced in the past, or you could include some new textures that you would like to practice. It is entirely up to you. Just start to get some ideas of what different types of things you would like to include in your artwork, remembering that you want some different textures to practice. If you'd like some other examples, I have here my piece of paper that I used to brainstorm some different types of textures. You might have one of these if you still have one that you did in a previous video, a previous exploration of texture, or you can take a look at mine for some ideas. For example, I have the texture of a cactus. I have the texture of something squishy or something sticky, maybe a rough texture or a soft texture. The texture of a brick, the texture of paper, the texture of lace, the texture of wood. Any kind of texture that you can imagine including in your drawing, it is totally up to you. So once you start to have some ideas, something that you'd like to draw, maybe it's an outdoor scene, maybe in the backyard, maybe it's a landscape, maybe it's a room or a space in your house. Could be something big, a big space, or maybe a tiny, small little corner space. Start to get some ideas of different textures in those spaces that you would like to explore. I think for me, maybe I'm gonna do, I think I'd like to do, my dog, who I have drawn in the past, likes to sleep on her dog bed underneath the couch, not the couch, underneath the piano. My family has a big piano in the room, and there's it's a type of a grand piano, so there's space underneath where she can lie down. So if we put her bed under there, the bed, I'm imagining, is a very soft texture. Her fur is a very fluffy texture. The piano is a hard, shiny, smooth texture. And the carpet is even a different texture. So I'm starting to get some ideas of a few different textures I could include in a drawing of my dog in her dog bed under the piano. I think that's what I'm going to go with today. You feel free to draw whatever you can imagine, whether it's a real space or something that you come up with. Just try to include a few different textures that you can explore. So I'm just going to do a little bit of sketching first. Let's say here's the edge of the piano. Something like that. Maybe it's all the way up there at the top of the paper. And there's that edge of it. And maybe it continues off my paper. There's the, I don't even know if you can see that. Yeah, the edge of the piano. The piano has, well, I forget exactly where the legs are, but let's say there's probably a leg on the piano right here. Come down right in the front. And there's the other side. Here. And one more here. That's the front edge. And it goes sort of like that. And it's got a wheel underneath. Something like that. Maybe I'll make the wheel a little bit bigger. And then I know there's another leg somewhere over here, but I think I'll draw the dog bed first. So I've already got my first texture I'm imagining is going to go on this piano and on the leg is that hard, shiny, smooth piano texture. But now I'm going to put the dog bed underneath, and it's pretty wide. She's a pretty big dog. Just sketching it in. Just start to put some objects in your image. You know what? I think I'm going to move that down a little bit. Got my handy dandy eraser here. It's a little bit closer to the wheel of the piano. That's the edge of the bed. It probably comes around like this. There's the other edge. Just sketching it in so I know where those textures are going to go. And then the bed goes back like this, I think. Back like this. I'm imagining looking down at the dog bed from a little bit above. And maybe the back of the bed back here somewhere. And maybe the back of the floor where the wall meets the floor. Probably somewhere back there. Maybe I'll move that. Depends how I feel. I'm going to put the other leg back here. We'll see. And this is going to be my piano texture. Just remembering that I want to include some different textures in my drawing. Just exploring different ways to include different textures. Yeah, that leg looks pretty short to me, so I think I'll make it a little bit longer. Change where the dog bed is a little bit. If you need to change things in your drawing, that's okay. It's a useful step. It's useful to have a sketching phase in your drawing, so you can just sketch where you want things to be. That's one of the amazing things about having a pencil and an eraser. Put that right about there. A little bit better. And put a wheel there. Now maybe the dog bed actually comes up like this and then goes back like that. And there's another leg, maybe somewhere over here, but maybe it's off. Maybe it's off the page. Now her dog bed has a front edge. It kind of comes down like this, goes behind the leg, comes up like this. And I'm remembering that the texture of the bed is going to be very soft. She has a very soft dog bed. So I know that the lines that I create will help give that illusion of softness. That will help give that implied texture. Now, I think I'll sketch my dog. Let's say she's got her head down. She's resting. Put her head right about here. Her nose over here. Just sketching it in. And her ears are probably down because she's resting. Maybe there's nothing interesting to hear in the room, so she's probably got her ears down. My dog is the kind of dog that her ears perk up when she's paying attention to something, and her ears lay down when she's just hanging out. And got her back. You know, I can even sketch over this piano leg if I want to, because I can always erase it. It's the beauty of a pencil. She's in the dog bed, and maybe her leg is here. Something like that. And her front leg is here. And her tail's gonna come right around her leg. Something like that. Now I'm remembering that I'm going to include the texture of my dog's fur. So I'm not quite at that step yet. And I might still want to change some of my sketch a little bit. I think her leg's gonna go a little bit farther back. So far I've got 3 different objects, if you can call my dog an object. And they've got 3 different textures. I'm probably also going to do a little bit of texture on the carpet itself. So try to include several different textures, so you have a chance to explore how to create those different visual textures. Alrighty. The next step, oh, you know what? I just thought of one more texture I'm going to include. My dog loves tennis balls. I think I'll put a little tennis ball over here like she was playing with it and she got tired. And that's a different texture that I get to explore too. Texture of the tennis ball. That's very large for a tennis ball. I'm going to make it a little smaller. There we go. Now I'm going to erase some of these lines that I have running through my piano legs. And I'm going to start to add in some textures. So I know that the piano is very hard and smooth. So I'm going to want the lines on my piano to be very firm, straight. Same with the wheels on the piano. They are very firm. This little thing that comes down like this attaches to the inside of the wheel like that. There we go. And now for this one. And I'm thinking about how I'm going to create the visual texture, the implied texture of this piano. Very shiny and smooth. Different pianos have different textures, of course. The piano that I am drawing is my grandparents' piano, and it is all black, very shiny and smooth, like I said. The piano that I grew up with in our living room, it's actually in this room with me, is a wood piano. So I would probably create the texture on the wood piano a little bit differently. So just keep thinking about how you want to create the different textures in your artwork. Now for the bottom of the piano, more hard lines. The bottom edge sort of scoops around in a curved line. Like that, and then goes off to the side like that. So I'll probably clean that up a little bit with my eraser. I definitely want to give a shine to this piano, so I can use that shine to communicate the texture to my viewer. Let's see how I'm going to do that. Let's say that the light hits the piano somewhere around here. And maybe this is the other side. So this area here, I'm going to say is the shiniest part of the piano. Maybe there's a lamp facing that direction. So I've given it sort of a wavy outline like this because it's going to be a smooth shine, not a very blocky shine like you would have on a bubble or a glass. It's going to be a pretty smooth value change on my piano. Since that's mainly because it's because of the material, the texture, but it's also because it's a curved surface. Just like when we were creating the illusion of form, we remember that a curved surface, we can use a gradient, a very subtle change in value to create the illusion of form. As you can see, I'm working on here. And that will create the illusion of that curved shape. I'm using my pencil for this. I might use my crayon later. We'll see. Just see how I feel. You can use your colors if you would like. It's up to you. I think it's very helpful to use the pencil to explore because you can really get the details in. It's a little bit harder with crayons. It also takes off some of the pressure I feel sometimes to get all the colors just right. When I'm working with just a pencil, it makes me feel a little bit free to, well, that's interesting. Feel kind of free to just create the images, the shapes, the lines, the values with just the pencil. But that's up to you. Coloring with the side of my pencil so I can cover a bigger area in a shorter amount of time. Just a little pro tip from me to you. Okay, now I want the same sort of texture effect on the legs of the piano, but it's not a curved surface. So I probably want to create an area of shine, probably on these surfaces of the legs, and then the other areas will be darker. I'll probably go this way. So just keep looking for ways to create that visual texture. Keep practicing different ideas. Maybe you have an idea that works better than you ever imagined. Maybe you have an idea that didn't work so well, and that's okay too. You can keep trying, keep exploring. So now that I've created this very dark value, I'm probably going to want the other sides, the other areas of the piano, the darker areas of the piano to be that same dark value, but we'll get there. That's one of those moments where I took a step back and looked at the whole picture. And I totally recommend doing that. It is very helpful to see if you're creating what you want to create by just taking a moment, taking a step back, taking a look at what you've done so far, and seeing if there's anything you want to change. If you're done with the texture on one object in your image, you can move on to another texture. Or if you're still working on something, keep working on it. Just really trying to create some different visual textures. How would something feel if you could reach out and touch it? Going for the illusion of form on the piano legs here. You can see I'm using a few different values to try to create that feeling of three-dimensional form on these piano legs. Got a little bit of the shine from the lamp that I'm imagining behind the viewer, pointing at the piano. And maybe I'll even color in that shine a little bit, as long as I make it just a little bit lighter than the other areas. Make the other areas a little darker than the shiny area. just keep experimenting, trying different ideas, different techniques until you get the effect that you want. Alrighty, I'm gonna move on to my dog and her bed and her tennis ball. So I'm gonna go with my dog first. And I'll give her, start maybe with her nose. She's got a little black nose here. I could even try to create the texture of her nose, which is, sometimes it's wet, sometimes it's a little bit dry. If you're drawing a wet nose, you can give it a little shine. Dry nose might not be as shiny. She's got a smooth snout. And a little bit of fur on her mouth. And then her chin is pretty smooth. She's got some whiskers here. Do some whisker textures. She's got, her face is pretty smooth. Her head is pretty smooth. A little bit of furriness. And then she's got a lot of fur on her ears. And on her cheeks. So I'm going to do a little bit of a furry texture there. Next, her neck is very fluffy, so I'll add some fur there. And the ruff around the back of her neck and the sides, very fluffy and furry. And her back has long fur. Mostly lies down flat, but sometimes it sticks out a little bit. Her legs, the front has pretty short fur. Something like that. Just think about how different objects have different textures. Sometimes different areas on different objects have different textures. Like my dog has little furry toes and longer fur on the backs of her legs. Furry tummy. And her tail's pretty furry too. Very fluffy. We'll say it goes behind this part of the bed. Using that overlapping technique, that gives us a sense of space, the element of space. And she's got that fluffy furry tail, comes around like that. And there's the outline of my dog. Now I think before I do all the fur on her, I'm gonna work on this fluffy bed. So I'm gonna make it seem like her paw here is pressing down on the bed a little bit. So maybe it comes up like that around it, so it looks like she's pressing down a little bit. And then it comes down like that, around like that. It's very round lines on this bed because it's very soft, very pillowy. Sort of like that. Pillowy, fluffy bed that she likes to lie down in. The sides come like that. Again, very pillowy, curvy lines. And just giving it that little bit of a bumpy look makes it already look much softer, pillowier. Give my dog an eye. Well, maybe I'll erase some of those inside lines first. That's the kind of eye I'm going to give her today. All sorts of different ways to draw eyes, of course. I think that's just the one that I'm going to do right now. Now, last things I want to outline are the tennis ball, and I'm going to outline the back of the carpet here where the carpet meets the wall. Because that'll give me a chance to do a little bit of a carpet texture. Tennis ball. It's got kind of smooth, but also a little bit of fuzz on the tennis ball. It's a little bit fuzzy. My dog likes to chew on the fuzz, pull the fuzz off. So if I'm thinking about the texture of a tennis ball, how to draw the texture of a tennis ball, maybe I'll draw a little bit of fuzz. And a little bit of smoothness where the lines are. But the other parts of the tennis ball, a little bit fuzzy. All right, before I get carried away, I'm going to do the carpet edge back here. Now, when the carpet is far away, I'm not going to see the individual fibers of the carpet very clearly. And this edge of the carpet is pretty far away. So if I think about that, and I want to create the illusion of space, I know I want to make that carpet texture look very small when it's very far away. So maybe just a little bit of bumpiness. In fact, maybe I want to erase most of the line I've already drawn, the sketch line, so I can really get some detail, far away, tiny detail on that carpet. Whatever you're working on, just keep thinking, how can I make it seem like if I show this to somebody, they can imagine what that texture feels like? Got a little bit of my bumpy carpet texture back there. And maybe I'll put a baseboard on the floor here, on the wall. That'll help give contrast and make it actually look like the bottom of the wall. Not all walls have a baseboard, but some of them do. That'd be a nice detail to include to tell the viewer what they're looking at. And maybe I'll erase it if I don't like it. That's the power of the pencil. All right. All right, last thing that I think I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add more fur texture to my dog, and I might even add some color. We'll see. We'll see. No promises. We'll see how I'm feeling. I'm gonna create the ruff, that thicker, furrier part around her shoulders and her neck. Comes down a little bit. And how about the white area on her face? Pretty smooth. The fur on her face is very small. It just comes down sort of like that. And I know there's a white spot on the end of her tail and white on her legs. Just going for a very fluffy, furry texture, so that the viewer feels like they could reach out and pet my dog. And you know what? She would like that. Well, unfortunately, my video cut off for a while there, but as you can see, I filled in the rest of the textures on my dog. I filled up this space with those fluffy, furry textures that I do with the pencil. That gives us the sense that one might actually be able to reach out and pet my dog. I also filled in the wheels on the bottom of the piano to give them that smooth, solid texture. I added a little bit of fuzzy texture to the tennis ball there, and I could keep going. I could fill in some more carpet textures if I wanted to, or maybe add a fabric texture to the dog bed here, but I think I'm gonna leave it where it is for right now, because we're about out of time. But I did want to point out a couple of different art elements I was able to use to create that visual texture. For example, I used value on the piano to create those smooth, shiny textures on the piano body and the piano legs. And I used the line, both in these small detail lines on the dog fur, but also I used line, and you could think maybe shape as well, to create the illusion of a soft texture on the dog bed. I didn't even need to add any smaller detail textures to the dog bed itself. By using line, just like that, I was able to create the feeling that this dog bed is very pillowy and soft. So there are all sorts of different ways that you can create visual or implied texture in your artwork, and I encourage you to keep trying out different ways. Maybe you'll think of something that you hadn't thought of before. Give it a shot. It may be your new way of doing things, or you may learn something from it. So I hope you have enjoyed this exploration of texture in artwork, and as always, I hope you keep creating, keep sharing. I'll see you next time.